Hey, Elliot,
Yeah,
Game Awards is it's held way too early, right?
yeah, absolutely. Way too early. There's always massive games that miss out on the list.
So when do you think it should be?
Oh, definitely start of January, absolutely within the first week of the year. Otherwise, it's just not relevant anymore, right? Why do you ask?
Oh, just wondering, man. Just out of interest.
Oh, shit! "2021 was a really interesting year for video games, and it was kind of the year for throwbacks. From a host of platformers that got huge praise, old school style linear single player titles that gave that nostalgic joy, and the return of some beloved heroes, there were a lot of incredible games to get excited about. And even though once the dust settled, I did manage to miss out on some big hitters that will not be in this list, and with a huge 2022 ahead, they may not get out of the backlog for a long time, there are truly some memorable games that I really loved in 2021. So I know it's 3 weeks late, but let's get into it without further ado. Here are my top 10 games from 2021. Number 10, Omno. A game that dropped into Game Pass back in July with little fanfare, but one that I adored for its relaxing vibes, gorgeous design, brilliant lighting, and simplistic art style, not to mention a beautiful soundtrack. Omno from indie developer Studio Inky Fox was truly the best kind of surprise release. A game with zero dialogue and no exposition that sends you out onto the world to discover in your own time, with a very basic progression system of abilities, but a wonderfully intriguing world with alien creatures and landscapes. Omno is a short game that doesn't overstay its welcome, but is worth every minute. When I reviewed Omno for Seasoned Gaming, I said it's the kind of game you finish in an afternoon and remember for a lifetime, and I stick by that statement. Benedict Nicholls' score tips the game from good to great as well, as it beautifully tells the story that unfolds before you and will bring a tear to your eye. It's beautiful yet simple, short yet intriguing, fun to play and emotional, and a game everybody should play, especially if you have Xbox Game Pass. Number 9, The Forgotten City. A game that originally released as a mod for Skyrim, made by one Australian man, who then gave up a legal career to go all in for the full release of The Forgotten City as a standalone title. Seriously, check out the no-clip documentary about it for a really interesting story. The Forgotten City is a captivating time loop game about a modern man who is sent back into the past to a mysterious ancient Roman city which is haunted by a curse. When one person sins, everybody dies. Not only is the game's premise super interesting and a time loop game from 2021 that is actually well done, 12 minutes, sorry. The game's small yet open city is filled with really interesting characters who are excellently voiced and well written, and the time loop mechanic really lets you play with the limits of what can be achieved as you begin to unravel the mystery and attempt to stop somebody from sinning and repeating the loop again. There are small side stories to uncover as you run through the game's short time loop, and cleverly done mechanics that allow the player to forgo all the tasks with the help of one of the Forgotten City's NPCs, and although the canon ending may feel a bit insane to some, I think the story went in an interesting direction and was satisfying throughout. With almost no combat, it's not quite a walking sim, but in a similar vein, and another game that dropped into Game Pass last year. The Forgotten City is a game I would highly recommend picking up and experiencing. Number 8, Life is Strange: True Colors. A wonderful story that delves into some serious themes of depression, anxiety, mental health, and the bonds we create with those we love. Life is Strange: True Colors is simply a fantastic narrative-based title from Square Enix, developed by Deck 9. As a memorable and thoughtful Alex Chen, you're thrust into a new world as you return to your long-estranged brother and find yourself in the beautiful Colorado mountain town of Haven Springs. Things immediately go horribly wrong and you're left to try and solve a mystery. But you also develop relationships with those in this small town community. With some huge twists and turns, the plot deepens as the story goes along, although a lot of the game is quite personal and inward. Life is Strange: True Colors is a thoughtful title with a great cast of characters, and Alex in particular is performed incredibly well by Erica Mori. Like all Life is Strange games, it's packed to the brim with decision making, large and small, and the way you interact with those around you will impact your final outcome of the game. It has a killer soundtrack loaded with wonderful guitar-forward indie music, a gorgeous visual design, and the focus, especially around facial expressions, is impeccable, and it'll have its hooks in you by the end of episode 1. Number 7. Scarlet Nexus. A title that I feel kind of went under the radar in 2021 in some ways. It didn't make as much of a splash as I feel it deserved, with its ridiculously fun combat and an excellent story with dual protagonists. Although Scarlet Nexus suffers from some typical anime tropes, it is an excellent game. You choose initially between the two protagonists, Kasane and Yuito, and their stories play out concurrently. So if you do choose to play the game through twice, you'll see sides of the story slightly differently. The enemy designs are grotesque but incredible. The combat, like I said, is enjoyable and super fun when you're utilizing all your squad's mates' powers in tandem with your own to cause huge damage to your enemies. With electricity or fire added to your attacks, duplicating yourself for bonus damage, shielding for your protection, slowing down time, teleporting, and more, you can find interesting ways to tackle enemies with a slew of abilities and powers. Although the game's level design is at times uninteresting, almost corridor-like, and often repetitive, the relationship system with your teammates and the characters' personalities are stellar, and Kasane personally is one of my favourite characters from any game in 2021. The music is banging, the plot is bonkers, and Scarlet Nexus is now available on Game Pass too, so don't skip it. Number 6. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. What really needs to be said here, Mass Effect Legendary Edition is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a remaster of the greatest trilogy of all time, and it's done so well. To be frank, I didn't even get up to playing Mass Effect 3, but the improvements to Mass Effect 1, as well as the addition of all the DLC from the whole trilogy, and it all being included in one package, makes this game stand up even in the age of everything being remastered. I would have loved to see Mass Effect 1 be remade from the ground up, and I would still love to see that one day, as unlikely as that may be, but even just playing the start of this trilogy with improved graphics and its gorgeous lighting, smooth frame rates finally, and much improved combat that's actually playable was a dream. It's the writing, the interesting characters, and the absolutely god-tier world building that truly sets Mass Effect on the highest of pedestals in gaming and all of media, and there is so much to love here. If you like science fiction or space operas, or just enjoy well-written media and brilliantly developed characters, and an epic threat to the human race, Mass Effect is definitely a game I think everybody should play. And hey, it's now even on Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play, which is insane. The value of this trilogy is immense, and you should definitely just go play it. Number 5. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. A game that is somehow a modern epic as well as a huge throwback to single-player games of the past, Guardians of the Galaxy from Eidos Montreal was a huge surprise to me. When it was first shown off at E3, to be honest, I was completely uninterested, and it did little to excite me, even though it was being made by a developer who I really respect, and love their previous work on the modern Deus Ex titles. However, more trailers came out and showed these alien worlds with unique visuals. It really stood out to me and it piqued my interest. Being announced only a few months before release without really any excessive fanfare, and not long after the horrendous launch of Marvel's Avengers, which Eidos assisted with development, the deck was really stacked against Guardians. But it truly shines in every way and does every single thing that Avengers did wrong, right. The single player story is heartfelt, excellently delivered and well written, with characters that never shut up but somehow never grate on you, and the player can empathize with the story despite it being a sci-fi epic. I said this on the podcast, but with Avengers, it seemed like each character was a bargain bin version of the MCU characters, but somehow, and I don't know how, the Guardians just don't feel that way. They're different enough and acted so well that they stand on their own feet, and the chemistry between the whole crew, as well as the excellent Mantis, is such a feat. The combat is good but not great, but it's really the narrative that drives you through, and the personal story that it tells, amongst being a galaxy-spanning comic book science fiction tale. The level design is wonderful and linear, with highly crafted areas and not a single level looking like the next. If you want a throwback to the past in the very best way, I couldn't recommend Guardians of the Galaxy enough. Number 4. Narita Boy. A game that is just 100% cool, Narita Boy has become one of my favourite indie games of all time. A 2D pixel art action platformer with the best soundtrack of 2021 from artist Salvinsky. Seriously, go check this soundtrack out, it is perfect. Narita Boy is the story of a boy who is sucked into a digital realm and has to rid the kingdom of the evil that has infected it, freeing its people, all the while learning of his own father's story and descent into loneliness and isolation. Armed with the sword of the Trichroma, Narita Boy travels through the three kingdoms in order to save the world. The graphics are gorgeous with beautiful lighting and colours that bathe the world in a digital glow. The art direction is second to none, with dark edges around the screen at all times and scan lines that make the game always look like you're playing on a CRT TV. The simplicity of the pixel art is made only better with excellent animations, and some of the boss fights are truly extraordinary. I've talked about this game a lot in 2021 and I will absolutely recommend it to anyone who wants to play an excellent indie title, and again, it's on Xbox Game Pass, so just go ahead and download it and give it a go. For more in-depth thoughts, you can read my review for Narita Boy on seasongaming.com. The link is below in the description. Number 3, The Artful Escape. It was so hard to choose where the previous game and this game would fit on the list because they are both such incredible indie titles that made such an impact on me, with their beautiful designs and music and pure gaming joy. But The Artful Escape sits at number 3 for just the way it excels in its presentation in every single way. A psychedelic and musical journey through the furthest reaches of the universe, The Artful Escape never stops being awe-inspiring in its visual design and is combined with one of the most unique musical scores in a video game. Although the game's music is amazing on its own, it allows you to just hold one button down to constantly shred a guitar solo through the majority of the game, which is expertly woven into the music that is playing at the same time, never feeling like it's repeating the same phrases, and it's all timed to perfection. There were times when I just stood still, allowing the character to play while enjoying the game's gorgeous visuals, and it just never gets boring. The game even has some cool customization towards the end, which really helps to personalize the story, and even though the boss guitar battles could have been more frequent and they're not exactly difficult, the ridiculously bombastic final boss fight makes up for it in the end, as it's just so damn epic. A game that any musician will enjoy, The Artful Escape is cosmic as and a beautiful, trippy adventure you have to see to believe. Number 2, Halo Infinite. A game that had so much riding on its release, and we all know the story by now about its delay. Halo Infinite did almost the impossible by releasing in such a beautiful way with its campaign as well as its multiplayer suite. Now, I'm not going to get into the multiplayer side of things because although I've put some hours into it, it's just not my forte. But the single player is where my heart lies. Halo Infinite took some risks, going open world, giving Chief side activities to do while on Zeta Halo, but I feel like it was the next logical step for the series. It feels good to go around hunting down high value targets and clearing out FOBs for the UNSC to take a foothold in the ring. Exploring feels natural, and with the addition of the incredible grapple shot, traversal feels better than ever before. And so does combat. The gunplay is second to literally none. The sound design of the weapons is punchy and weighty, and the selection of weaponry is excellent, with most of the classics, although I wish the DMR was included, as well as a host of new banished weapons, as well as some new human and covenant weaponry too, and even special versions of some weapons that are unlocked through taking out HVTs. In the campaign missions though, it still feels like a classic Halo game. In fact, it has a lot of similarities to Combat Evolved in the designs of the Forerunner structures, which are truly awesome, and have some of the best lighting in the whole game as you explore the depths of the Zeta Halo. The characters are super memorable, and I really love the addition of the weapon, as well as boss fights, which is another risk taken by 343, which I think for the most part they nailed. The bosses are menacing, yet sometimes the smaller play spaces of these fights can feel claustrophobic, but overall they were tense and good fun. The story is fantastic as well, and of course leaves itself open for further storytelling, which as far as I'm aware, will be part of Halo Infinite rather than a sequel, as 343 aims to support the game long term. A true return to form for Halo and a brilliant Halo game. 343 Industries deserves to be applauded for this triumph. And number 1, Forza Horizon 5. I mean, if you know me or if you've watched this channel for any period of time by now, I think you knew that this would be my number 1. Forza Horizon 5 is by far the best racing game of all time, with developer Playground Games taking everything it learned from its previous installments and building upon it all in the best way possible. Seasons return, yet they're slightly different due to Horizon 5 being set in the equatorial Mexico. The game is stacked with cars, over 500 at launch. There are stories, the Eliminator, playground games, online racing, convoys, PR stunts of course, and just so much more. But then there's new additions. More weather events like huge sandstorms, adventure missions where you're finding new locations for your different festivals, and even missions where you're set out into the jungle to find ancient temples and explore the rich history of Mexico. There is so much to do in Horizon 5. I've already put in over 60 hours and still have a ton of events to complete. There are seasonal objectives and series objectives, and so many things to unlock by doing certain races or stunts, and to top it off, there are still 0 microtransactions, which I think in this day and age is a testament to Playground Games in the biggest way possible. With over 10 million players at launch and one of the highest rated games of the year from critics, it's clear that Playground Games and Turn 10 have a masterpiece on their hands, and one that will be supported for a long time. The graphics are some of the best in the entire industry right now, the gameplay is smooth, and the additions over its predecessors are loaded throughout the game. And Forza Horizon just never takes itself too seriously. It embraces the tongue-in-cheek nature of the racing title, but it doesn't try to be edgy, and it is truly a joy to consume. Xbox Game Studios have begun to make their comeback in a huge way, and Forza Horizon 5 is a massive statement for the future and the best game of 2021. And that's my list. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of my top 10. Let me know your top 10 lists as well. I'm really interested to know. Like I said at the start, there's some huge games that I missed in 2021. Let me know what ones you think I should definitely play next. Thank you all for your support. I know this is like almost pointless having this so late in January. It was meant to come out the first week of the year and then I got COVID. So that's super fun. So it's been a bit of a struggle to actually get in the studio and record, but the channel will be back in full force very soon. I've got some really fun top 10 lists coming. Kat from the podcast and myself have got some really great ideas for the channel this year as well, and we can't wait to show them off once I'm better and don't sound like a sick boy. Thank you everybody for your support. Thanks for sticking around all year as well. It was a fantastic year and it looks like 2022 is going to be even more insane. So let me know what games you're most excited about in the comments too. Thank you so much for your support. Please, if you like the content that I create, hit like, hit subscribe. You know the deal. Until next time, peace.